Is it taking back control, Lord Adonis, for our democracy if the unelected lords now try and put back the amendments that the Commons voted out?
Well, you said that the Commons had rejected most of the Lords' amendments. That's not, in fact, true. The Commons and the government have accepted most of the Lords' amendments. We made nearly 200 amendments to the bill. The government has accepted 185 of them outright.
Yeah, but you know, we're talking about the key.
When it comes to the government amendments.
Yeah, but that's a role of the Lords. And a lot of them, though, Michael, were in response to Lords' debates. I mean, they weren't the government acting spontaneously. There were concerns about parliamentary processes.
But on the key amendments, which are controversial, which would not be government policy, and, you know, as some people say, would tie the hands of the negotiators. Are you going to try and put those back in? This
comes down to one amendment, which is called the Dominic Grieve Amendment, after the MP, the Conservative MP and former Attorney General who's proposed it, which is that Parliament should have a say in what happens if there is no deal at the end. Now, here, we're in a very unusual situation, because the Commons would have passed that amendment 2 days ago, but for the Prime Minister giving an undertaking to Dominic Grieve that the government would bring forward a very similar amendment. So we're now basically in a matter of honour. If the Prime Minister does bring forward an amendment of that kind, the Lords, of course, won't play any further role. I think the issue for the Lords now...
But do you trust that the Prime Minister has made a promise that she can keep to Dominic?
Well, we're waiting to see. She clearly gave that undertaking, and there are discussions between the Prime Minister and Dominic Grieve. If those are satisfactorily resolved, then I don't think the House of Lords will play any further role. The issue will be if that doesn't happen, because then it will be a straightforward issue of whether the actual will of the House of Commons is in fact being respected.
We don't know that the vote would have been lost if the amendment had gone to a vote. It did go to a vote, but the Commons chose to overturn the Lords' amendment. So that happened. We don't know what might have happened if these discussions hadn't taken place. We don't know what happened in the discussions. I will say this for Andrew. Let me pay Andrew a compliment.
Oh.
He has made no secret of the fact that he does not accept the result of the referendum. He does not want us to leave the European Union. I think that's undemocratic because of the referendum. I think it's arrogant, but at least he's straightforward and he tells us what he wants.
Wow, your compliments have a mixed blessing, don't they?
Well, unlike, I'm afraid, some people who pay lip service to Brexit but strive to achieve something which can only be described as Brexit in name only.
What do you do then if you are either an MP or a Lord who genuinely doesn't think it's good for the country? What do you suggest to them?
The country has spoken. Parliament...
But when there's a general election, the country speaks and elects a government.
This is different.
And MPs still are entitled to oppose their government.
Parliament delegated this decision as to whether or not we should leave the European Union to the country at large, to the British people. And the British people have spoken. They made it clear that they wished to leave the European Union.
But we didn't know what...
That's it.
But people didn't know what they were leaving did they? Did they know about the single market? Did they know about the customs union?
Yes, they did. Those things were said many times during the debate.
I tell you what, that was said by David Cameron as part of Project Fear. And a lot of people dismissed Project Fear and said, no, that's not going to happen.
Susanna, people on both sides said it would mean leaving the single market and leaving the customs union.
I don't think that was a unified message, with respect.
The Prime Minister constantly said we must have freedom to take back control over our laws, our money and our borders. That's the key of Brexit. You cannot have that control if you remain in the single market or the customs union. So that's what taking back control means.
Unless you try and negotiate it, I suppose.
No, you can't. The people have spoken. Parliament must respect their decision.
I don't agree that I'm being undemocratic. My view is that 2 years ago, people didn't have an actual proposition before them. They didn't know. When Michael says that they knew they were leaving the single market and the customs union, Boris Johnson, the effective leader of the Leave campaign, said we'd be staying in the single market. So as a matter of democracy, and this is a democratic principle, my view is that when the Prime Minister has negotiated this treaty, and I agree, Parliament can't negotiate treaties, it's the government that has to do it. When she has negotiated that treaty, at that point, Parliament has a crucial role in saying whether it's good enough, and my view is it should refer it to the people so that they can make a decision themselves as to whether this is what they want.
Then you might have a third referendum if there was
Lord Howard, do you believe that the Prime Minister has promised Dominic Grieve a meaningful vote of some sort, which is democratic, undemocratic, is actually going to happen, or is simply a unicorn promise?
I think a meaningful vote is already on in the bill, because the government promised a meaningful vote, and there was already an amendment to the original bill which promised that.
But a bit more control.
I have no idea.
Parliament.
I wasn't there when the Prime Minister saw Dominic Reid. I don't know what took place in that meeting. But I do know that we have to deliver what the people voted for, which is to take back control of our laws, our money and our borders.
And I want the people themselves to decide whether this treaty is good enough and whether they want to sacrifice the jobs and the prosperity and the well-being of the nation that's going to be involved. And I don't think on mature consideration...
We've had that project before.
I don't think on mature consideration they'll want to do this.